Welcome to Numis Nation. Today, we're going to be talking about the Kennedy half dollar, which is among the most recognizable American coins, and the last circulation half dollar that was made out of silver. JFK's portrait on the coin's obverse was designed by Gilroy Roberts, a sculptor and chief engraver of the U.S. Mint from 1948 to 1964. The reverse was engraved by Frank Gasparo and features a modified presidential seal with a shield on the eagle's chest. The bird is bearing an olive branch in its right talon and a bundle of 13 arrows in its left. The eagle holds a scroll in its beak with the words E pluribus unum, with a circle of stars surrounding that eagle. Another reverse appeared in 1975 and 1976, which depicted Independence Hall to commemorate America's 200th birthday. The design was made by sculptor and artist Seth Huntington, whose submission was chosen through a contest. Back over to Gilroy Roberts. Was he the head engraver at the Mint, or a secret communist agent planted in the heart of America? Roberts put his signature at the base of Kennedy's neck, which some people thought looked like a hammer and sickle. According to a Time magazine article from April 17, 1964, complaints were coming into the Denver Mint to report a suspected communist plot to influence America's coin design, I guess, or perhaps a tacit admission to their involvement in Kennedy's assassination. I feel like Red Scare propaganda kind of melted the minds of an entire generation. The article quotes the exasperated Roberts. "It's my monogram, a G and R in script combined. It might look like two sickles, maybe, but it looks nothing like a hammer and sickle at all. You've got to have a slanted mind to see that there." I really love this quote because you can almost hear his eyes rolling as you read through it. These coins were first minted in 1964, the year after Kennedy's head did that whole thing. Congress gave the green light for the JFK halves just a few months after the president was assassinated, with the goal of being a kind of memorial. There was some debate in Congress as to which denomination it would appear on, with the ultimate decision landing on the half dollar. The first run of these coins were going to be made out of 90% silver by weight. According to an article in the New York Times dated March 25, 1964, the coins were so popular that collectors and fans of the late president made a run on the banks and various mint locations. The article notes that a line more than a block long formed outside of the Treasury Department in Washington, and it was still there when they hit their limit of 70,000 coins just a few hours later, even though they were limiting them to 40 per person. Despite the number of coins being sucked up by the public, the silver JFK halves were seldom seen in actual circulation. This is speculation on my part, but I think this may have been further strained by a combination of people wanting to simply collect memorabilia for the late president, and speculators who saw the writing on the walls and started hoarding coins for their silver content as prices were climbing in the early 60s, and the US was also recovering from a coin shortage that started in 1959. I don't want to get too far into the weeds there, but the U.S. Coinage Act of 1965 definitely deserves its own video. Now, according to another Times article from November 22, 1964, official figures said nearly 148 million JFK halves were minted up to October of that year, but they were still rarely seen in regular circulation. The Treasury Department asked to continue producing coins bearing the 1964 date into 1965 in a move to help alleviate the coin shortage. I have no idea how that would help, but go off, I guess. Congress approved the decision, and eventually nearly 430 million JFK halves were minted with the 1964 date, and being made up of that 90% silver. This level of production, meant to help lessen the U.S. coin shortage, actually contributed to the U.S. Treasury Department using up its supply of silver faster than I go through my supply of buffalo sauce. On June 3, 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson announced plans to stop using silver in dimes and quarters and cut the silver content of the half dollar. The Coinage Act was passed in July of that year. Production on the new clad U.S. half dollars began on December 30th, 1965, with the first being struck at the Denver Mint. The silver content was cut back drastically, down to 40%. This was done by making the coins with an inner core of 20.9% silver and 79.1% copper. Where was that other 19.1%? That was in the outer casing, or cladding. In a December 28, 1965 press release, the U.S. Treasury Department said the outer layers were made out of an 80% silver and 20% copper alloy, making the new coins look pretty similar to the previous year. The new clad half dollars bore the 1965 date until the half dollar shortage was sort of alleviated, which wasn't until August 1st of 1966. After that point, the mint continued to produce coins with the date and the year they were actually struck in. Despite the mint cutting back on silver content, the half dollars were still very rarely seen in circulation. They blamed this on a combination of continued hoarding and a dip in production. The Treasury Department said the lack of general use as an actual currency was likely part of the reason behind the mint eliminating the use of silver altogether after about 5 years. The Treasury started asking about getting rid of silver altogether in 1969. This would make the half dollar into the same copper-nickel clad alloy with a pure copper core, just like the quarters and dimes. The department also asked to make $1 coins, again with the same metal, with a depiction of the recently deceased President Dwight Eisenhower. There was some debate, as some Republicans were not into putting Eisenhower's likeness on a weak, pathetic base metal coin. But the bill was eventually signed into law anyway on December 31st, 1970, under President Richard Nixon. In a press release sent out that day, the Treasury Department said, quote, "Since 1964, 1.2 billion half dollars bearing the portrait of former President Kennedy have been issued by the Mint. Sentiment, as well as numismatic and bullion hoarding, has caused a circulation shortage of the half dollar. By removing the 40% silver content from the half dollar and minting cupro-nickel clad coins with the former president's portrait, the Mint expects to achieve general circulation of the half dollar." This eliminated silver from circulating U.S. coinage once and for all, and the last 40% Kennedy half dollars were made in 1970 in the Denver Mint. The 2.1 million 1970D JFK halves were kept a secret from the public while the Mint was taking orders for proof sets. The Treasury Department did not make this announcement that circulation issue Kennedy halves would no longer contain silver until after the Mint set orders were closed. Despite all of this effort to get people to use the half dollar, people weren't that interested without that juicy silver content. The Mint accumulated a hoard of 200 million of the 1971 base metal halves, which sat gathering dust in the government's treasury. An article published in the Kentucky New Era newspaper on July 24th of 1971 quoted Mary T. Brooks, head of the U.S. Mint, saying, "I can't understand the population, they're just not using them." The public did not care, neither did the banks or businesses. The article finishes off with this absolutely brutal quote. She said everywhere she goes, she asks businessmen if they have any Kennedy halves. They tell me why they're not making them anymore. And I reply, "I beg your pardon, I just got through making 300 million of them." Despite this, the Mint kept making base metal halves for general circulation up to 2002. That said, they were still making them every year, but you could only get them if you asked specifically, and they were sold at a little bit of a markup. Where is the JFK half today? According to coinworld.com, they have been found in general circulation once again as of 2021. Now, since people held on to these JFK half dollars and the mint made so many of them, they're probably some of the easiest and cheapest US silver coins that you can get a hold of. According to the 2023 Red Book, a 1964 half will go for between $10 and $25. From there, the price drops significantly. The 40% silver halves at the low end typically sell for about $6, with the Red Book saying the 1970 D proof are the most expensive at $75. Into the clad coins, they likely won't go for much above face value unless you happen to run into somebody looking for a specific year, in which case you might get a couple bucks. Obviously, the silver proof issues will go for more money simply because of that silver content, and they peak at about $50 for a 2012 S. The Red Book says the 2014 gold half dollars can fetch you upwards of $900 if you're lucky enough to find one. The JFK half is a coin with a complicated past, starting off with an explosion in public interest but a lack of use as currency, leading to overproduction, and ending with the entire denomination kind of dropping off. And because of that, it's a fairly affordable silver coin if you wanted to add it to your collection. I want to give a shout out to my sources for this video: the US Mint, the 2023 Red Book, PCGS, the New York Times Archives, coinworld.com, and the Kentucky New Era Archives. Hit subscribe for more videos on coins and the history behind them. Thank you for watching.